Hi, I am Jennifer Purcell, and welcome to my podcast, Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge, where we will discuss, discover, and learn more about the challenges and triumphs of those with NLD and other learning challenges. I do have a website for this podcast, and it is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter account for the podcast. They are all under the same name, which is Living with NLD. I also have a YouTube channel for the podcast, which can be found by Googling the title of the podcast, which is Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. I would like to tell you about a nonprofit that I use for my research for this podcast. It is called the NVLD Project, and I use their blog for my research. They are a nonprofit that is based in New York and is trying to get NVLD back on the DSM, and they provide many resources for people with NVLD on their website. I'll provide you with the website for them in the podcast description. All proceeds from the ads on this podcast will be donated towards the NVLD project. Please feel free to explore the other topics on the podcast, and hopefully you will learn something new from them. I hope you enjoy today's episodes. Also, I have podcast swag on Markful. I believe that's the name of the website I'm using now. I also have it on Redbubble. I'll give you the links in the description for this podcast episode, and you can take a look. Both websites have different prices, and they have some discounts going on also. And one has t-shirts and some apparel that you can buy and some drinkware. So see which one you would like better. Okay, so I'm here today with Taylor, who is a special ed teacher, and she will begin by introducing herself.
Hi, I'm Taylor. My title officially is elementary education specialist, but I work with 4th and 5th graders this year.
Okay, is there any specific subject that you work with your students on?
I primarily work with it depends on their individual goals that are in their IEPs, but right now it's mostly like math goals and writing and reading goals, so primarily helping them with that. And then there's some social, emotional, like behavioral stuff that I work with them on. That's like my duty and not the school psychologist. So there will be some types of lessons like that, but like not that I couldn't help them with science or social studies, but primarily just trying to get them at grade level for like reading, writing, ELA stuff, and then oh my gosh, reading, writing, ELA stuff, and math.
That makes sense. You teach in San Diego, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. How long have you been teaching?
This is my first year as a special ed teacher.
Okay.
And I'm actually in progress of my teaching credential. They have that opportunity for special ed teachers, and they do have it for like math and science teachers. It's essentially like intern teacher programs for quote hard to fill positions, which I don't know. I've always liked special ed the best. So I mean, to me, that's like I don't know. That's not hard to fill. I'm excited that I have a job and that they wanted me.
Oh, that's good. What are the range of learning disabilities that you work with?
So I have I'm in progress of a mild to moderate credential. So that is anywhere from just they call them like specific learning disabilities or other health impairments. Those usually are like ADD or ADHD type stuff. But I'm not the one that diagnoses those kids. It would be like a school psychologist, and usually I don't think they do diagnose for that stuff. And then also autism, typically, like I have a few children with autism or who are autistic, depending on what phrasing you like.
What else was I going to ask? Do you, I know that sometimes a special ed teacher will interact with the general ed students. Is that true for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I at this moment I'm mostly doing push-in services. So I go into the general ed classroom where
Mm-hmm.
I have the students. So to try not to make it obvious about why I am working with a certain student, because you don't want to embarrass them in any
Right.
way or point out, yeah, this kid is the one that is having trouble with reading. That's why I'm here. So I kind of introduced myself to each class, like in general. So
Mm-hmm.
then a lot of general ed kids are going to say, hi, Miss Spencer. Hi, Miss Spencer. I want to come work with you. And I'm like, oh, sorry. Like, it's just this kid, or, I'll be in your class. You'll see me later,
Cute.
yeah.
Um, what did you do before you were a special ed teacher? Did you still work with in the same area or?
Yes, a little bit. I've kind of been all over the place. To put it in context, I graduated college in 2019, so I had like 6 months of the workforce before COVID
Mm-hmm.
pandemic. I I found the school that I'm working at because I got hired as a roving special ed sub. So they had
Okay.
extra COVID funding where they had a substitute that would go in and sub for the general ed teachers so they could attend IEP meetings. Or I would sub for the case manager slash special ed teacher. That's kind of, those names are they're interchangeable. They're the same person. They're the special ed teacher. But it's for a charter school that I work at because I'm in elementary right now, but I was like the
Mm-hmm.
special ed sub for elementary through high school. So my schedule was always different. I started doing that. Before that, I worked in a lot of I worked in homeless shelters. I was a nanny for a little bit. I was a mental health clinician. All of those were not great for my own mental health stuff. It was a little too close to home, but
Mm.
uh teaching I found is like really fun. Or like it's very challenging, but it's something that I feel like I have a good skill set for that I didn't realize at first.
Hmm. That makes sense. Well, that's good that you realized that. Um, when you think of the subjects that you help with your students, because I know you help with a variety of ones, are there certain subjects that you find or school projects that you find are easier for your students than others?
I'm not sure quite yet because I'm still getting to know them, but
Right.
it's hard. I think something that's difficult for a lot of them is some students really have a hard time with not get like if the directions are vague,
Mm,
or like some students really like to have like the creativity to do whatever they want, but I think a lot of
hmm.
the time my students are the ones that are struggling to find what is required of me, and like just the bare minimum, depending on who it is. But yeah, that's a really good question because I need to figure that out. I'm still learning the kids in my caseload just because I've only been in school with them like 2 or 3 weeks, so I'm just getting to know all of them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just curious because I know sometimes, like I know for me, when I was in school, I had a lot of challenge with math and writing. Um,
Yeah.
but I got better at it when I had tutors, and same thing with reading comprehension. I was really good in history and science and English and the grammar. So I was just, I think in general, sometimes you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think from my experience with people with autism, they sometimes, I think they're either good at math or science, or sometimes it can be
Yeah.
the other way around. They're
I
bad
mean,
at it.
that would that would make sense to me. Like the kind of the mindset a lot of people like autistic people have is like very like black and white depending on it, or like
Mm-hmm.
very like rule oriented, or so it's like science and math, their rules always stay the same. But I think a lot of the time, like if you're good at English or writing, whatever language you're at, but like your reading and writing, that can be sometimes up to interpretation of the teacher, more like writing, I guess, not so
Right.
much in elementary school. um but like math and science, those like how to solve those problems are always the same.
Yeah, I would agree with you. When it's more abstract, it's harder for special ed students.
Yeah.
Um, What do you like best so far or least about your teaching? I know you're still discovering all that.
What I like best, or maybe I'll start with what I like least. I'll start with what I like least, and I don't know, I don't know.
Okay.
What I like least is that I am at a school where my predecessor was less than great.
Mm.
Uh, I was told that he called kids stupid.
Aw.
And I won't say much more, but like literally, like, why are you in this role? You could
Mhm.
have any other job if you aren't gonna want to work with you're working with like the most vulnerable students, like just
Yeah.
uh but um yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Can you repeat the question?
That's okay. I had asked what you liked least or best about your teaching.
Oh, right. So what I like least, I guess, is that a lot of the teachers right now, well, first off, it's hard because they are kind of recreating their elementary sped program because last year they
Mhm.
didn't even have a classroom for us.
Mm.
So we had to do push-in services where we go into the classroom and teach and assist the children, or we'd like take them out, pull out, and like go
Mhm.
to like the library or something. But they finally have a classroom for us. So, but there's also like different expectations that we currently don't have a lot of teacher assistants at all in our classrooms, like just
Mm.
even for the general classroom to help other general ed kids. So there's a lot of pressure on me. Like people that don't understand my role are kind of like, well, why aren't you in our class yet?
Mhm.
Which I haven't experienced too much of. Like they're very eager for my help because they need the help because we're currently pretty low staffed with our teacher assistants and our aides. So that's kind of what I like least. It's kind of it's a lot of different people expecting different things of me while I'm still learning the role myself.
Mm.
So I have to say no, or I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be saying yes.
Right.
But luckily I do have like a good supervisor and mentor teacher who's helping me out with that.
That's good.
Yeah. But what I like best, I like that it's because like how everybody learns is so unique,
Mhm.
and we just don't have like the like capacity usually to teach everyone in the exact way that would be best for them. But
Right.
I like that I'm helping certain students in a way that is working for them, and that my job, because they are so young and vulnerable, they can't use the
Mhm.
words that say, oh, I'm this type of learner, I'm this, that I'm the one
Mm.
that's advocating for them, because like so many kids struggle and just can't find the words, and we
Yeah.
don't know, it depends on them at home, what kind of support they get, if they're getting a lot of support. But like I like that I'm at least an adult that is advocating for their needs, and hopefully they can learn when they're older to advocate for themselves.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
that's
that makes
probably like,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense to me because I know for myself it was a little challenging for me to advocate for my needs when I was in college and still learning about NLD and my diagnosis. But when I
Yeah.
got out of college, it was easier because I knew more of how I learned and what I needed from people. And I think to some extent, I'm still learning, uh, you know, what I needed versus in school versus what I need now in adult life.
Yeah.
That's different. Um, and I'm sure that might be true for your students too. They're probably learning uh it well, I don't know if they know if any of them know that they are special ed.
It's kind of weird. I don't, some of them do know, like they're like,
Mm-hmm.
when am I seeing you? Like they're like, when am I seeing you? But I don't have this, like we had our personal school has been like rechanging what is the intervention they're getting, what type of
Mm.
services they're getting, because they have like a different time where they go into group, they switch classes based on like where their reading levels at. So there's like maybe like kids that are almost below reading level or grade level, below like reading below grade level kids,
Mm-hmm.
and then like the kind of at grade level, and then maybe the ones that could be challenged a little bit because they're a little bit above. um so they might get a hint of that if they,
Right.
but not, so that's like something that we're doing, that they're already doing. um so they might get a hint of if they're special ed. I try not to make it super obvious in case it is embarrassing for them. And not make it like a bad thing. Like other kids have seen me like take certain students out of class just to introduce myself, because I was like, okay, they need to all know me. For the first few weeks of school, that's kind of what I was doing, just kind of popping into classrooms, seeing, kind of observing the kids, helping in where I can. But I'm still learning the teacher part of it. Like I've worked with like different like a wide range of different populations. I was a psych major, but then I wanted to do social work. But now I'm a teacher, which I like. Yeah. So they don't always know, and it's not maybe the best to tell each child, but a lot of them know that, oh man, I get in trouble for fidgeting a lot, but no one else like, why don't they fidget like me, and why aren't they getting in trouble?
I'm sure they know something is unique and different about them. They might just not know why.
Yeah.
Because I can definitely see where it might be hard to share that with a child depending on their age. And I think that their age can definitely be different if they are special ed.
Yeah, I was in middle school last year, and it was very awkward at times. Oh, am I still with you?
Yeah, you're still with me. I can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, so it was pretty awkward last year when I was teaching mostly middle schooler sped, because they call it like a special day class. If they, I mean, you have your podcast about special ed, so maybe I'm just teaching you like what you already know, but like they had their own period called college bound, which is just like to work on other work from other classes to like assist them, but they would like use the R slur at
I think you just froze there.
Place insecure, like they know, hey, like extra tutoring when other kids don't, so that was very awkward. And like, some of them kind of understood, because at that point, I think at least in high school, they were invited to their own IEP meetings. And I think in middle school, sometimes they go to them as well, in case they want to advocate for themselves. But that wasn't as common. It was usually high schoolers that would go to their own meetings, but not middle school yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I didn't know that they could go to their own IEP meetings.
Yeah, I'm still learning that. I think for most of the time it was like high schoolers that would want to, because they were more in on it, or maybe they wanted a different accommodation. So, but yeah, the elementary school kids definitely don't go to their own IEP meetings.
That makes sense. You said you were teaching fourth or fifth graders, right?
Yeah, all my kids on my caseload are 4th and 5th grade this year.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm not sure if you have experienced this yet, but I know that sometimes bullying is common at schools, and I was wondering how it's handled at your school.
Oh, right. Well, I was looking at that question. For bullying at my school, they try, I guess, for punishment for bullying, like they try and do like restorative justice as much as possible. Like, oh, you said something really mean to this student, you're going to write an apology letter to them. It's different with sped kids, because a lot of sped kids tend to get in trouble or bully or get bullied depending on I haven't seen it. Can you hear my dog bark? Okay, good. Let me know if he isn't, and I will restart my sentence. So typically, like in the elementary school, I haven't seen lots of bullying. On my own caseload, there's like a student that has autism, and he got really mad last week at his friend, so he kept saying things like, "You're not my friend anymore," and stuff. And students can't get disciplined for something that would be part of their IEP, because it's illegal technically. Like we have to kind of like determine what is part of like what is preventable, and then like what is what not. So it's kind of tricky. It's like kind of usually a discussion of like,
Right.
well, what exactly did they say and what did they do and how does this break a school rule?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say the elementary school does a really good job though of keeping it very positive. And I don't know if other schools still stop doing this, but like, I don't know, have other people said if they go to elementary schools where they still have like the GATE program, like the gifted and talented class, or have they stopped doing that altogether?
Uh, that's a good question. I think I was trying to remember what the other teachers I interviewed said. I think one of them might have had the gifted and talented one. I've been interviewing mostly people who do middle school, not elementary school. So
Yeah, it's
maybe they have it and they use a different term for it.
yeah, like because when I was a kid, I was in that class and it was like very obvious, and you took a test and like people knew that they were not in that class. It was like, so I know that a lot of schools don't do that anymore, and they're like, because
Mhm.
like at my school, there's no gate class, there's no like kids that are working like at grade level or above. It's like everyone is in a general class, so
Mhm.
which I think helps with helps with them understanding each other more, which
Right.
makes the bullying not really as prevalent. um and they do a good job of like being very positive and everything. So thankfully it hasn't been a huge thing, but the bullying in the there's lots of bullying in middle school still. But
Yeah,
mostly kids that they have an IEP and they're working on like their own emotional social regulation skills.
that makes sense. Um, what I what I thought was an interesting question, I've been asking all the teachers I've interviewed about this. When you compare the neurotypical students that you interact with to the special ed, what do you wish the neurotypicals knew more about the special ed ones, like to try to understand them better?
um what do I wish that the neurotypical students knew kind of about the sped students? I wish that they would know that there's not really something very much wrong with them,
Mm-hmm.
because just how, well, I mean, this is like me on my soapbox, but like this school system in itself is like, still very much like we're teaching kids to sit down when they're supposed to sit down and stand up when they're supposed to stand up and raise their hand before they talk. And, you can only go to the bathroom at this time. And they've moved past that. But I mean, it's the school day is long on purpose. They try and
Right.
train us to get ready to work an 8-hour job. So what I wish like other kids knew, which I haven't seen too much of, thankfully yet, just that like they're just because their behavior is different doesn't mean that they're not like able to be friends with them, or
Mm-hmm.
because I
Mm-hmm.
or that don't like just I wish all the kids knew that it's okay to be yourself and that everyone's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit unique. But I mean, it's we how it I don't have the answers. But I wish that they all kind of knew that it's okay to be unique, and that everyone everyone's going to have a rough day, and that looks different for
Right.
every type of student.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I definitely would definitely see where that is helpful to um and I think that goes both ways with the special ed, knowing about the neurotypical students in terms of knowing that um even the neurotypical ones can have a bad day, and being able to um try to if not empathize with each other, at least sympathize with each other on some level.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so when you are um, going into another classroom, what kind of environment do you usually, I guess, like what kind of environment is there usually present so that the student can learn easily?
In a different teacher's classroom.
Yeah, since or in your own classroom, I'm not sure if you have both.
I do have both. Currently, it is not set up yet because supply chain issues and our stuff wasn't ordered in time. I don't want to spend so much complaining, but it does not make me feel good that the most vulnerable students do not have their classroom set up yet. And we're entering the 4th week of school. I have a kidney table, but finally I got it this week. It's kind of showing a little bit about how how SPED gets prioritized at schools. I didn't say the name of my school, right?
No, you didn't. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna keep it anonymous. But just yeah. Sorry, can you repeat your question again?
It's okay. I was asking about the environment of the classroom.
Okay, so the other environments of the classrooms, from what I've seen, like some of them are very positive, some of them are about like restorative justice, and then there are other educators that are kind of still struggling to move past certain phrasing. Like I went into a classroom where the teacher said like, this is really simple, and it seems like no one's getting it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, like, I don't like to tell any kid that anything's easy or not.
Yeah.
And I know she means well, and I know I've watched her. I mean, I'm assuming like I've seen all the 4th and 5th grade teachers at my school, and I've watched them all like progress and do, like, I've seen a lot of them and their different styles and like what I really like from each of them. And for the most part, they're making it a welcoming class. Like my school is pretty unique in that it's a charter school, but it is just in the neighborhood that we're in San Diego, and it's a pretty like low socioeconomic status school. It's a lot of students of color, and there's a lot of white teachers for a school that's mostly students of color. For example, I'm a white teacher. So I think that there's a lot more work that could be done. And I think I've seen a lot of work by the white teachers, like making their classrooms more welcoming, trying to like, be anti-racist as possible. Yeah, but there's still that struggle there.
Yeah.
But I do see a lot of very like positive classrooms, a lot of group work. In elementary school, you have such a short attention span, but it's been great to see like, all the teachers like trying to incorporate things that are good for everybody. Like they all have horrible attention spans because they all had to do school during COVID, and they all grew up with TikTok and Instagram and iPads at their fingers, right? Like we didn't have that.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. Actually, I was gonna ask, I know you didn't teach during the pandemic, but I was curious if you knew anything about how your school handled that.
I heard a little bit. Like, do you mean just like how they work, how it was?
Yeah, like if they did hybrid, or if how they try to respond to education during the pandemic, because I know some people did hybrid or they had to do completely online in the beginning.
Right. I think that they did like March 2020 through the end of the school year, of course, was lockdowns over online, and then the next school year was all online as well. So 2020 fall till spring 2021 was online as well, but then they came back in person the school year before ours, to 2021 to 2022. And I didn't get hired there until December 2021 as a roving substitute, so I worked there every single day. And was just going different, like working mostly. I worked mostly in their middle school, but it was like right now it's kind of like it's not hybrid, and it was never hybrid this past school year because they did have to like have a COVID team, and if a kid has independent study, it probably means they have COVID, or someone in their house has COVID. So just having a lot of adaptation that way, but they didn't do like hybrid in person at all. They were like, okay, let's keep them safe. Let's try and give them give them the technology they need. Having to get like the Wi-Fi box for everybody, and then the computer for everybody.
That makes sense. That's good that they provided the Wi-Fi and the computer, because I know with some of the teachers I was talking about interviewing, they what they did was they had like Wi-Fi spots and buses that they would go around to different neighborhoods with, and I thought that was creative.
Oh, that is really creative. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, there's definitely different ways that people came up with to try to combat that during the pandemic.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, what was I gonna ask? This probably won't apply yet because you're still in the beginning. But one of the questions I had was if you like if any of the special ed students have done better with the schooling than you thought, or maybe other teachers thought that they were going to.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could speak to one student I have, but this is just my own little irk. I have a student that is like basically textbook autistic. Like everything about this kid, I'm like, yeah, duh. Well, he's autistic. And because he has had like meltdowns, like where they have to evacuate the class and they have like, me or whoever. I wasn't this kid's teacher. I taught extended school year during the summer. So I had this student in the summer, and then now he's on my caseload because I got we have TK through 5 for elementary school. And I have 4th and 5th graders. Just it depends on like how many the amount of students with IEPs, like how it's spread out, but I have 15 4th and 5th graders. And he was in my summer class. So I knew him before the summer, and he did have some meltdowns and stuff, but it's all just like sensory overload of stuff with routine. He has been doing better, but because the teachers have been like more willing to hear, oh yeah, like let's do some preventative action. Let's not like, we have to really pick our battles, like what is essential to make him try and do, what is not. Like he doesn't like pick.
I also want to take time to let you know that this podcast is sponsored by Spotify. And if you would like to support this podcast and keep it going, you can donate through Spotify, or you can donate through Patreon, which is also a sponsor for podcasts. And on Patreon, I started to put different material up there. For $5, you can get some episodes that don't have any ads to it. And for $10, you can get the same episode along with the transcript for it, at least the link to it that is on my website. And you can listen to the episode while you read along to it. And also, BetterHelp sponsors this podcast, and BetterHelp is an online therapy program that has helped millions of people get out of whatever situation that they may be in that it requires therapy, whether that's depression or anxiety, or maybe they're going through a difficult period with being a healing from something in their past that happened. I know for myself, I've been in 8 years of therapy with a different online program than BetterHelp, but I can speak in general terms that therapy is very effective and can help you change your life around for the better. It certainly has done that for mine. And I provide all the links for these sponsorships in the podcast description if you want to check them out. Thank you.
As I wrap up, there are some things I would like to share with you. I do have a website for this podcast. It is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook and Instagram page for this podcast. It is called Living with NLD. I will include the links for those in the description. In conclusion, I would like to hear from my audience. If you know individuals with NLD that I could interview for this podcast, please email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com. What are you interested in learning about NLD? I know I'm not an expert, but I do know I have the living experience of having it. I would like you to practice journaling about your gifts and differences. Also, see if there is a way that you can make that difference become easier for you to do than it originally was. Thank you for listening today, and please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to it. Thank you. Bye.